brain freeze on you and boom. So how's the weather by you? How
Seen
about
any
those
good
Yankees?
movies? All right.
Actually, I have. My wife and I are finally getting around to watching all the MCU movies, and we're doing them in timeline order. So, I mean,
Nice.
it's just comic books, but it's fun. It's good
Yeah, I
entertainment.
I grew up with comic books and all that. I love those movies
Hmm.
so much. I try to get my wife to rewatch them. She's not really into that, but so it'll be a solo gig. All right, we'll just get going here and
You bet.
hello everyone. Welcome to VR Verdict, episode 76. I am PJ. Wookie is absent this episode, but we're talking to Thomas from Fletcher Studios.
Type.
Be talking about his game Booper. I always want to say Blooper. Booper Get Home? Is that the
Yep.
official title?
That's
All right.
unless something drastically happens. When I got started with this, he had drawn the character that you see on the placard behind you, and because he's on the autism spectrum, he doesn't talk a lot. So when he does speak, it's important. So when I asked, "Who's this? What's this?" he said, "Booper." And that was a nickname that I had given him ever since he was just a tiny little baby in my arms. And okay, that's what it is. It's Booper. So that's what we're going with. And
That's awesome.
one of the things that was interesting about him and his drawings is he emulates a lot of what he sees in life. So there's plenty of times when we're doing things on the game, he'll play test it, he'll take off the headset, and then he'll go and draw, and then he'll bring me something like, here, put this in the game.
Oh my
But
god,
I
that's
have to say,
awesome.
okay, but I have to say, no, that's Mario. That's a copyrighted character. We can't use him. So I was looking at this drawing. It was such a cute character, but I had to go to like his preschool teachers, the teachers that he had before that, and like, is this a book he read? Is this something that just in case? Because the last
Yep.
thing I want is to be working on a game and get slapped with the DCMA takedown because
Yeah.
I'm using somebody's illustrated children's novel character. And they had no idea. I posted it on Facebook, and I had plenty of people chiming in, like, "Oh, it's a ladybug. It's some people saw an African American, some people just saw a little kid. They saw something different. Everybody did." And what I like about this character is I've got a nice banner that has the main character and some background on it. When they see it at the game dev shows, that they just smile. There's just something that it connects with people, and they love it. So,
Yeah.
hopefully it's not something he copied from somewhere that I just can't find. I even did a reverse Google search just in case, that reverse image search
Yeah.
thing, and it came up with Zippo. So, fingers crossed.
That's amazing. So for those listening, you've built like, most of this game out of his drawings. And so about what would you say like percentage wise of the game like is his drawings or does
Oh,
that not?
virtually all of it. Like every static thing you see, like the characters floating there, the background objects like the trees, the houses, the vehicles, everything is something that he drew. I've
Wow.
sculpted a lot of the levels out of Oculus Medium, or I should say Adobe Medium now, but I'll use his scribbles as the texture map. So a brown scribble, that's dirt; green scribble, that's grass, that sort of thing. And I'll even take some of his drawings that are kind of just abstract and geometric and make that into a level itself. I've got one in progress that he just drew a maze, and I said, okay, we'll just take that, we'll just trace it out in Blender, extrude it, and boom, it's a maze
Wow.
that you have to walk on and carefully not fall off the edge. And then we'll throw a few monsters in it, and they'll be chasing you kind of Pac-Man style, and you have to find the exit.
That is that's beyond creativity right there. Like
What was interesting is inspired by another game that I had never heard of. He's always online. You know, his TV time is half spent just either watching game videos or learning how to do things. Like he's learning how to make games in Scratch, and he's just knocking my socks off because he'll just simply Google, if I want to learn about something, I'll go find out how to make a side scroller, how to make it jump, make it have a sound. But what he sees online also translates to his artwork. So when he wrote something down, phrase stuck with me: there is no game. And that was just such a profound thing for him. And I had no idea that it's an actual game online, and I think it might be on Steam too. But the phrase stuck with me. And then when he drew the maze that he would have his brother kind of try and complete, I just took that and said, okay, we're getting out of the hand-drawn realm here, so let's make it there is no game. You've suddenly been teleported to this just netherworld that you have nothing but white maze, white haze, and okay, when you work the maze, you'll leave footprints so you can see where you've been, and
Nice.
if you happen to fall off, die, or whatever, you have to restart from the beginning, but you have your footprints that you can trace your path and say, okay, I've been this way. And it's all based on a game that I never even knew about, but he happened to be enamored of.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I told you earlier, I was playing the demo you have available, and it's just an adorable environment to be in. It's just like I even if you couldn't move or anything, it was just like a live animated thing. It would be perfect. So it's really neat to jump around and game in there.
Tell you a neat little story about that. The last time I was able to demo my game, we have a game developers expo called GDEX that I've been showing out for the past couple of years. And the last time I did it was September 2 years ago. One of the fellow developers, I guess he's an introvert by nature, but after a whole weekend of walking around talking to people, he just comes up to me and he kind of sighs. He looks at me and says, "Do you mind if I just play it for a while? I need to decompress." And he didn't do anything. He just wandered around, looked around, and spent about half an hour just chilling in the game environment for a bit. And when he's done, he takes off the headset, hands it to me, and just, "Thanks, I needed that." I was touched. It was so sweet that, okay,
Yeah.
I've created a space that you can feel comfortable in and just let your cares go away.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of similar. Like I told you, I work a full-time job. It was a long week, and first thing I do when I get home, I tried your demo, and I'm like, this is nice. I just wasn't in a better mood.
That's like the best review I could ever ask for. What's interesting, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of the sound effects, that's my kid.
I was
So
going
when
to
you
ask,
jump in the
yeah.
water, and he goes, or him going when you walk through
Yep.
grass.
Yeah. I was going to ask that because I noticed that, and I just thought that was adorable too. Like, games, it's obviously like a kid-friendly game, but like, it's almost like it's so cute it like hurts with the sound effects and all that. So it's kind of a funny double-edged sword there.
It's also one of the things that I want to capitalize on at some point. I want to have that Disney movie kind of just really sad moment, and there's not a dry eye in the house kind of thing, because part of games is that emotional connection. I mean, certainly there's plenty of just shoot 'em up games where everyone's just getting into the adrenaline high and whatnot, but there's so many games like that Dragon Cancer or Firewatch or something that people have just this emotional moment, and they're like, oh, this was such an amazing game because the story was so gripping, or just something that I connected with.
Yeah.
And I'd like this to have a bit of that, because, to be honest, this is one of my first ventures, like game-wise, so I really can't wow people with all kinds of, fantastic mechanics and intricate, puzzles and things like that. But if I can give them a good story, if I can give them something they can connect with, that'll be worth it.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting the position you're in, because hey, you're working with your child and, you know, developing his creativity or whatever, you know, growing it. Um, but then you're also using it as a tool to raise awareness for, you know, autism and all that. So it's just, it's amazing. Like the story behind it is just, it blows my mind.
I I'm lucky in as much that as far as people on the spectrum go, he's not as complicated as some people are. Other than the fact that he's very limited in his vocabulary, he doesn't talk a lot. Um, he's generally just a regular kid. He likes, you know, mac and cheese. He likes playing video games, likes cartoons, that sort of thing. And we go to summer camps and things for kids on the spectrum, and I see there's plenty of kids that they'll never have even anything close to a normal life. And you know, when I see them compared to my kid, I'm grateful, but it's like, oh, I want to help this guy. I want to help his friends. I want to, you know, everyone that I see. It's heartbreaking because, as you know, as we're progressing, things are getting better for the autistic community, but still, how many are undiagnosed? How many are just being swept under the rug or forgotten about? And it's not just kids. There's plenty of adults who have probably been stigmatized their whole life and have no idea. They've just either been labeled some derogatory term or just never been given a chance at treatment simply because that's older generations just dealt with it. And I'd like to be them too in any way that I could. And what is interesting is I started talking to a gal who wants to help me with some of the PR work, and she's given me so many ideas like, okay, don't just do a game. Try and get this character licensed. Take like 10% of your game profits and use it towards that, but use like 50 or 60% of your licensing. So anytime you make a t-shirt, you're donating that much more. And that will help generate, you know, more interest. Somebody's walking down the street with Booper's mug on their T-shirt and something on the back that, you know, I helped people with autism. Boom, that can spread the message so much more.
Yeah, that's, you know, and then that in itself, like, helps raise awareness, helps get your name out there for like future projects, helps just helps everyone because like, you know, I'm a geek. I wear all kinds of like shirts with stuff on them. Like, I could definitely rock a shirt with a Booper on it. But you know, just knowing that, because I know some of the proceeds for the game and all that stuff go towards, you know, the charities and probably other things, I'm sure. So buying a shirt that I know does something instead of just I like what it looks like makes me feel way better about buying it and wearing it and supporting it. So,
one of the things that I'd also like to do, I mean, if at all possible, is, well, first off, if this game goes absolutely nowhere, one of the things that I'll be able to do, or my son will be able to do, is just in 20 years pick up this dusty old headset and put it on and say, hey, me and the old man, we made this. But I'd also, if it really takes off, I want to develop a companion app. So a parent could take like a smartphone or a tablet, take a picture of their own kid's drawing, and the app will cut it up, slice it, rig it, and animate it so a kid could play their own drawing in game.
Wow, and, that's neat.
Yeah, I think that if anything, it will help anybody like express their creativity. I think I might have to have a caveat that we're not responsible for giant walking genitalia or anything like that.
Yeah, you always have to have that caveat, unfortunately.
But the fact that if a kid sees this and says, oh, hey, I'd like to be in the game too, they could draw their own stick figure or their own, you know, dragon or anything that they'd like to be, and let their imagination go with it, and help kids understand that, you know, you can contribute, you can be a force, you can help, you know, drive the world that you're in.
That's amazing, because I remember as a kid doodling and all kinds of stuff, and you know, I'm old, so none of that exists anywhere in any form. Like it's gone. But it would be
Hmm.
neat to have that, as you like you said, when you're older and you could look at that stuff, which we kind of missed out on a little bit. But kids nowadays have the opportunity
Oh,
at least.
yeah, my kids growing up with VR, that they tell their friends all about it, and yeah, after showing them Beat Saber or something like that, oh yeah, my dad's got a game he's making too, and their friends are all just blown away. What? And of
So
course
you
they all want.
mentioned that this is. Oh, sorry.
No, no, go right ahead. I was simply just going to say that the big caveat with that is that when you have a dozen kids that are friends with your kid, all wanting to borrow your VR headset, it's a little nerve wracking.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say that, or ask. You mentioned this is kind of your first foray into gaming. So, how did this all come about? Like, how did you get into it?
Well, when I say my first foray, it's the first thing that's actually been a viable product. I've
Okay.
been modding games forever, like going back to the original Quake 1, Doom 3, Half-Life 2. I'd always tinker. I actually wanted to get into it to be a texture artist.
Nice.
I absolutely loved just being able to take, Quake 2 levels and hand paint different texture maps, and all of a sudden, my artistic creation is now overlaid on this game world. And for the longest time, I've always been a gamer, even going back to our ColecoVision Pong, not,
Yep.
but right around when my first son was born, I was big into gaming. I was playing Team Fortress 2 for hours every night, and then my gaming just kind of dropped. It's a huge responsibility, so I can't spend all that time playing. And I also felt that I was getting tired of just the same old, I'm playing another
Yeah.
shooter. I wanted more quality than quantity, and I
Yep.
started hearing about this VR thing, and ooh, what? So I had been trained classically as a painter, and I said, okay. I sold a couple of paintings and bought the DK2 when that dropped, and I'm blown away. And as soon as I tried it, I want to make things for this. I felt it was like an empathy machine. I wanted to make a simulator, what it's like to be a homeless person on a subway. And of course, the classic gamer mistake or classic dev mistake, I scoped way too big, got in, and realized I needed to step back, start learning more. So I had taken a class, or not even a class. It was just like an hour long. Like we have a local game developer group, and they had a session about using Playmaker, which is a programming substitute. Instead of typing lines of code and me getting a headache every time I do that, of logic together and connecting them based on a visual scripting system. And once I saw that, it clicked for me. I could start making the interactivity that I wanted. And I started off with just a simple move a character around on a plane. And as I'm doing this, my kids are, of course, wanting to play with daddy's new toys. They see me using it, they want to use it. So at one I got frustrated, and I just slapped one of my son's drawings on a character controller, slapped the headset on him, and just went to scrub the bathroom or something. About 10 minutes later, I'm just hearing hysterical laughter. And all they're doing is they're walking the character off the edge and just he's falling. So I looked at it, and I really looked at it. I saw his drawing, and I saw it moving, and I said, this is cute. This has potential, and this is something that I can start with and build from there. And I took his drawing, I started working on it, and I showed it to a few people, and they were blown away. And it just kind of snowballed from there. About a few months later, one of the local game dev group leaders came to me and he says, do you have anything that you can show? We have this game dev expo called GDEX coming up, and my guy backed out. And I said, I'll put something together. And I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning, working furiously until everyone got up. And any time that I could, I would just squeeze in a little bit each day. until it came time to drive down to Columbus, set up my computer, put on the headset, and bam! I just the feedback I got was amazing. People
Nice.
just saw the little cardboard printout that I had, smile. I would offer to play, and once I told them the story, yeah, that's my kids' drawings. People loved it, and it's nonstop ever since.
And it's the game has a really unique like perspective because it's third person, but you're kind of like closer up, which is really neat. And then you're just walking around in the world, and you can turn the world, and it's just like I played the demo. I don't know what stage that's at, but it felt really good, looked really great. I enjoyed being in it. So I don't know. I think you released that in like February, didn't you? I think I saw the date on that.
Around there, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's been an iterative process. That was the most recent update with having randomized the monster movement and adding just polish to it. One of the things that I've been also doing is I'm adding just regular like Xbox controller support because
Nice.
with VR controllers, I've noticed, especially anything Vive Index related, kids' hands are too small to use them. But you hand them an Xbox controller and they just take off with it. So, and one of the things that I found through my local game dev conference is Able Gamers, which helps people with disabilities play. I want to find ways that people are physically challenged be able to play my game. And since
Nice.
it's not a stand-up, run-around type VR game, you can sit, you can be immobilized. It doesn't matter, just as long as you have the ability to work some simple controls. I think it's doable.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple episodes ago we were talking about epilepsy and and all kinds of things, but like the Microsoft controller, forgetting the name of it, but the Adapt. I can't remember the name of it, but the adaptable controller they have is really amazing, and just what's happening with people with different disabilities in gaming is just great to hear. So I'm glad you're offering support for children and whatnot. On that same topic, I'm just curious with your child. You keep hearing like VR is not great for kids or this or that. Like, what have you seen or noticed or?
Certainly, obviously, the concerns about still developing eyes and things like that, I get. When my kids play, it's not for very long periods, and certainly, I think the biggest issue is focal development, and any issues that might occur are from just repetitive, constant use. We try to limit as best as we can, not only VR time, but just screen time in general, but also, I've had a few kids just run with the headset straight into a wall, so limit the damage that can be done. It is a mixed bag because regardless of whatever people say, oh, kids under 13 shouldn't use it, they're going to.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things behind me making this is when you look at a vast amount of the content that's offered, it's all Call of Duty, zombie, shoot 'em ups that, I don't know if I want my 8-year-old to play that.
Yeah, give them options.
Yeah, a happy Nintendo-esque romp through a kid's imagination, no problem. But yeah. And certainly, as a single-player game, there's no worry about, multiplayer griefing or my kids are going to hear people screaming obscenities, things like that.
Nope. Yeah, it's always great to hear. Like, obviously, you're a parent and you think about these things, but some companies obviously don't really focus much on that. They don't care. So it's good to hear.
Mean, it's a moneymaker.
Yeah.
If going around and waving decapitated heads makes you money, I can't fall. I'm just enough of a market for for, I guess, a little more innocent fare that at least lets me continue making games. And like I said before, even if it goes absolutely nowhere, my son will have something to look back on and say, hey, we did this together.
Yeah. But even as like I said, I'm older. Finding a game like this is just a really nice palate cleanser for anything else I've been into a lot, or so it just works.
What have you been playing?
Well, you know, we have guests every week, so I play a new game every week to keep up. But some of my favorites, like a Township Tale, just came out on Quest. I've been in that.
I want it. Looks fun.
It's really good. I played the alpha on PC like a year and a half, 2 years ago, whenever that launched, and I'm like, I'll wait till it's done. I see the promise. It's going to be great, and it paid off. It's really good.
Beat Saber's big in my house because we can all compete, and we have a family that likes to see who can get the best high score. And I'm up there too in age, so the old man reflexes as they used to be.
Yeah. I was also curious with children, like, so my wife cannot play VR. She gets dizzy watching TV shows sometimes if the camera goes nuts. So even a game like I always say, like I Expect You to Die, which you're just sitting in a chair pointing at things. After a half hour, she's toast, and she's kind of got a headache for like an hour after that. So I'm just curious, like, do children, and from what you've seen, are they not affected as much, or is it kind of the same thing? Like some people have it, some people don't, or?
I generally have to say that kids are a bit more receptive to it. I had one tweener girl recently say that she started to feel dizzy after playing my demo for a bit, and part of it I'm trying to now incorporate the comfort modes where you get that vignetting when you turn something like that. I think that might have been off, but it was also like her first experience with VR.
Yeah.
But generally, I've never really had that many kids really have any other reaction other than, okay, I'm going to get back in line and I'm going to come around and I'm going to play.
And maybe that's the secret. Maybe I have to get my wife's, like, her whole family over here and just keep going the line, and by the time you get back up, you're cured and you're back for it.
I've really only had that one young lady, and I think one grown-up who just also first time doing VR, had no idea what to expect, and just kind of said, okay, I've got to take this off. The few shows that I've gotten to show this at, hip, fairly trendy audience, fairly young too, and they're all familiar with it. And I typically try to ask when I'm demoing my game, have you done VR? If you start to feel dizzy, tell me, we'll get you out of the headset, that sort of experience. And with the kids, generally, as they've been going through the game expo, they've already tried several times, and they kind of act. It's like, oh yeah, this is old hat. I'm ready for it. Bring it. And like, okay, let's go for it. See what you find.
I feel bad because I tell my wife, oh, we're talking to this person about this, and this game is amazing. You gotta try it, and she's an old school gamer. Like, we can rock the Switch a lot. She can't do like 3D games either, so shooters and anything like the first person stuff's out. So it gives me someone to play old school Nintendo games with and stuff, so that's great. But it's just like, you can tell she wants to try stuff. Like, she did try Ragnarok, the rhythm game with the Vikings. She loves it, but she's like, yeah, that and Beat Saber, she can do like 20 minutes. She's got to stop. So it's kind of sad, but I hope as like the technology like gets better, I think some of that might go away. I hope.
I think so. I think as both field of view gets bigger and the resolution gets better, we'll have, and certainly frame rates. I know that the times that my game is not terribly optimized, you can see it gets choppy and stutters, and since it's a third person, it can affect people a little bit. One of the things that I'm learning as I'm developing is that even my best practices will lead me astray. And when I started working for the Quest version, I started off with a build that was almost 300 megs, and just by taking some basic practices, I've got it down to like 150 megs, I think. I almost cut it in half. So, and obviously, as I'm learning how to improve, the build size, I'm learning how to optimize frame rate so it gives a much smoother experience. Because, I don't want a game that makes people sick.
Yeah.
I don't want people saying, "Oh, here's my first review. It's a barf machine. Don't bother." And there goes my sales.
Yeah, and it doesn't take many of those to really wreck someone's day.
Yeah, I don't know if you had seen the headlines. I was just looking at Twitter before I jumped in here that Super Hot has gotten review bombed because they took out the self-inflicted the suicide thing, and man, they obviously have already made a fair amount of money, and people are itching for a sequel in VR. But still, the fact suddenly up in arms because they cut something out of their game. Ooh, it might affect future sales.
Yeah, that was interesting. Well, we brought some of your assets in. If you want to go do some show and tell and tell us some about the characters and gameplay with them, you can do that.
You bet.
Let me jump over there, then I'll move the camera.
Nope.
And I love that you were talking about bringing assets in. You're like, yeah, they can be animated, right? I'm like, awesome.
That's been a bit of a learning curve because it's one thing to just simply cut out a drawing and extrude it. It's another to rig it and animate it because none of these things have a standard humanoid rig or anything that you can just copy from a plug-in. I have to go and manually edit each and every one and then figure out the animations for it. How do you make a round little monster like move? How does he attack? What does he do when he's idle? The monster was just simply a way of adding an adversary in the demo, and I initially wanted to go the classic platformer route and have 3 lives and power-ups and things like that, but I thought maybe not. Maybe I wanted to be more about exploration and learning and problem solving as opposed to the classic platformer tropes. So I figured that all I really wanted was something that would knock you down for a sec, and then you just button mash and you would pop back up and continue onwards. Currently in the demo, the bee just floats around place to place, but I'd like to have a mechanic where possibly you could summon a horde of them to help scare away the monster, or possibly you help the bees. You need to plant flowers, and it'll be like a mini quest to go around the level just scattering seeds and help the pollinators.
Yeah, I mean, the bees are in decline. We got to get these younger generations on the right track.
Exactly. Now, the trick is, though, if I make him like a helper, he chases away the monster, I have to now figure out how does he attack? How's he going to sting the monster? And he's got the impressive stinger there, so.
Yeah. We talked about your son voice acting and stuff. I just remembered in the demo you're finding socks for the gatekeeper guy, and I just thought it was adorable as all get out when you pick up a sock and he's like, a sock. Just like, so good.
I asked him to record that line, and normally he's a little shy about it, but he took to that immediately. And I have hours and hours and hours of my kids playing. It's all imaginative, creative play, and certainly lots of destructive sounds, but also just so many tidbits of dialogue. The biggest problem I'm finding is, I'm using a cell phone or a laptop to record them, so the audio quality isn't that great.
We came over to talk about these guys, but now other questions are popping in my head. Do you think having him do voices and stuff, do you think that could be like a form of therapy that actually helps him kind of come out a little bit more, or anything like that? Or?
Certainly an interesting thought. He goes to a speech therapist, and she's always giving us homework that we should do, asking him questions about things, trying to engage with him vocally. Having him do things like this could very well be a good way of getting him to speak more. Certainly, when it's in context for the game, where he can see and hear it, might get that little wheel turning. I had never thought of that, but it's a very interesting point. And guess what I'm going to be doing later? Hey, you want to record some more lines?
It's just like, how there are games, and I'm trying to remember the one for PlayStation VR, but the games that allow you to create games.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you could create a game where like children could put their voices and all that stuff, and you could actually use it as a tool, because gaming obviously speaks to everyone, especially children though, and that's just something that they would use and do that would be pretty powerful.
One of the things that he's also picked up on, since he's learning to make his own games in Scratch, is that you can use that game engine to actually record sounds, and they'll plug in a little microphone that they have, and he'll either record his own voice, or he'll actually go and press like a YouTube video to capture a clip that he wants. So he certainly gets that aspect. The monster there, when he suddenly decides that he's going to bounce around to a new location, there's a very deep-rooted sound. That's actually my son at a very baby state, when he was just giggling and cooing to himself. I just dropped it 6 octaves or so, and that's my little baby making noises. The bee, I don't think it's very loud, but it's also him just going bzzzt every time it decides to go to a new location.
That's just awesome, and that's gotta be, you said you didn't want to do like a normal Mario type game, because like you just said, like, this is your child here, and you probably don't want to be jumping on his head.
I don't want to smush him.
Yeah. But I would definitely, like, when in the demo, I got knocked down a couple times because I didn't know what was going on. I stayed away from the bee because obviously the stinger's large. So I didn't know they were friendly. I'll have to go back in there and check it out.
What's neat is this actual environment where I get to see them at a completely different level.
Yeah.
I'm used to obviously seeing them in relation to my player character, but to be able to walk around like this
yeah.
You know that Spatial's got it set up that you can import a model and plop it in the middle there. I might have to take advantage of that. Just to here, let me check on my model.
Yeah. My one of my things I've been talking to them about that I want to do is I want to have a little toy box in here. And anytime a guest brings an asset, I want to get their permission, obviously, but keep it in there. That way, when we're not here and everyone's walking around, they can come in a toy box and just pull out an asset and like, who did this? And they'll have your name and stuff. That'd be really neat.
Oh my goodness, that would be so fun, and I would be totally happy. These would be perfect.
Yeah, I just really need to come just like this and check it out and just see how it moves. It's just because my brother he's done animation and gaming stuff, and he's a pretty good artist, even though he won't tell you that. So he knows how this works. I have no idea. So just looking at this, it just blows my mind. Like, I know this was just a drawing. Like, how do you get it to flap like that?
It's I mean, pretty much you put in invisible bones that will deform the mesh, and then you move them just like standard animation. You move them a little bit at a time until you get the motion that you want. But the trick is actually deciding, okay, this is they're both like standard like idle motions here. But what happens when they attack? What happens when they're suddenly aware of an enemy, but they haven't located them yet? It's thinking of all those things and how
Yeah.
to take a character like this and give it a motion that's believable. Right now, this is uber simple. It's not terribly complicated, but motion, and as I'm learning still as I'm making this game, is very much acting. It's trying to put yourself into the head of a cartoon bee and saying, okay, is it going to flap like this? Is it going to flap really fast? Is it going to have a big flap? Is it going to bend its antennas? And then making those things happen. And they're all creative choices. And I mean, I could be completely wrong about that. They could all be totally wrong for a bee. A bee would never act like, especially a cartoon one. And one of the things that I could have completely wrong is, my son drew this. Maybe he didn't intend for it to move that way.
Yeah.
Maybe the wings should move up and down as opposed to side to side.
Yeah, that's just having a game that is like 100% born from your child and your creativity and just mixing all that. It still boggles my mind. It's very touching, very touching. So, how long have you been working on this particular on the game? I guess.
It's kind of a tough way to say. Like, I initially started working on this in the winter of 2017, 2018. But being a full-time stay-at-home dad means that I can't do like those solo guys where they're just sitting working for 12-hour days, months on end. Obviously, as I was starting to do this, and when crunch time came, I would get up early in the morning and work on it before everybody else would wake up. But as soon as it was time to feed everybody, to get everybody ready for work, for school, things like that, I have to stop. So I don't think I've ever put in like a full 40-hour a week
Sure.
on this. So while it's taken since then to get this demo, and I'm now working on the actual game levels, I have no real metric to say I've put X amount of hours into it, and I probably should keep track of that, simply because it's such a different path than. Yeah, it's almost like the guy who works the 40-hour a week and then comes home and does it in his spare time would probably be my best analogy. So, and since it's, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done. I was just curious. Do you think, giving like where this all came from and what you're doing with it, do you think it's made it easier for you to stay engaged and actually be excited to work on it that long? Because
totally. Oh my goodness, yeah. Because I certainly have tons of other video game ideas, like the classic World War II game and the classic, plenty of those ideas are constantly percolating in my head. But I keep coming back to this, one, because it's just such a rich, vibrant world, and two, I think he disappeared. There you are. I can hear you, but I don't see you. But two, my son doesn't stop drawing. We started giving him 18 by 24 100-page sketch pads, and I have a stack that's about 2.5 feet high that he's filled up. And as soon as he's done with one sketchbook, he wants another. He has slowed down a bit in his drawing, and he's changed a little bit. His style's changing. He likes using pencil now as opposed to crayon, and for a while he was big into ink and marker for a bit. So, and I get these weird moments where I think he's trying to get a little more realistic, like he's trying to draw three-dimensional isometric style drawings. So I'm wondering, should I have levels based on his different overs? Is he going to have a blue period?
Yeah, you have to do the maybe DLC for that when it changes.
And boom, there you go. You're thinking the exact same way I am.
That's incredible, though. It's just that he's so engaged with it, and then you just always have content to work with, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And I brought him in here earlier today just to take a peek at these two
Awesome.
guys, and yeah, he looked around and was impressed with it because this is a different environment than he's used to seeing.
Sure. So when do you have like a release window in mind, or is it what's your plans for release or future?
It's tough to say because COVID messed everything up. Both my kids are finally in school, and while they were, I was able to get, a couple of hours each and every day to actually work on this. And right before we went into lockdown and everything, I was scheduled to show this at the Cleveland International Film Festival, which had a much bigger audience than what I'm used to. GDEX has, I think, anywhere between 2,500 to 5,000 people. The International Film Festival has something close to 100,000 guests. So it would have been a huge, broader market for me to show my game. And then a week before that, I was supposed to go on the radio and do a little bit of a interview. Our local NPR affiliate does a thing
Nice.
about local creative projects and things. And then, yeah, COVID hit, everything shut down, everything got locked down. And basically, yeah, wife and kids were at home, and development pretty much stopped. Unless I had a few hours here and there randomly, I was busy helping make food for people who were home. So working tech support for juggling, two kids on Chromebooks. The wife's doing Zoom calls constantly, and just getting the house running. So it really is going to depend on a couple of things. Obviously, if we can get ourselves out of this, and I'm terrified of this like Delta and now Lambda variants that are going to just mess everything up again. And when I can, I'm actively pursuing, angel and seed round funding. I've had a couple of people at these game dev conferences say, hey, I'd like to work on this. And obviously, people have their own lives. They have their own gigs and whatnot. So I'd love to have the ability to actually pay people for their work. And if it's just me, it might be a couple of years. If I can get some help, it'll be sooner.
Sure.
The trick is finding also people that I mesh with. A programmer who became a new dad recently reached out to me. He's like, I've got very little time, but I want to help with this project. And he's done some snippets of code. One of the things that makes the demo so amazing now is that for the longest time, the camera, the VR headset, would actually clip through like the level walls and whatnot, and it really broke the immersion. He figured out a way of preventing that from happening, and it made the demo so much better. So,
Nice.
yeah, I definitely want him on board, and because he's got his own job, he's got a wife and kid. I want him to get compensated for his limited time. And then obviously artists, I know people who are composers who have done like little musical cues for me and whatnot. I think with the idea that if this starts to take off, that they'd like to see a bigger role as well. A guy happened to see just a trailer on YouTube, and he said, it inspired me so much that I wrote you a song. Use it for whatever. And now it's on my Twitter feed is his music, because I have like a little pitch video where I describe the story, describe how we found out he was on the spectrum and what I'm doing, and it's just such a cute little piece of music that I really want to be able to hire this guy and say, okay, give me the dramatic tense moment. I want this song to do the Disney thing where they have just
Yeah.
that moment like Fievel in American Tail where he realizes he's lost and there's not a dry eye in the house. And oh my goodness, headset power is low.
Oh.
But yeah, I have a niece who is 11 or 12, and she's learning piano and has an amazing singing voice. And I said to her, like, look, if I can get a song composed, would you sing it? Would you like to be? And she said, of course, hands down, she'd be thrilled to. So I get to incorporate more of my family in this project.
Nice. That's awesome.
And actually, the narrator for the demo, that's my brother. He
Nice. I was gonna ask who that was. I figured it was someone close.
yeah, he's always wanted to get into voiceover work, and I was like, here, I could use this, and I said, can you try to do like your own version of William H. Macy doing the Curious George voiceovers, and what he came up with.
Uh-oh. I'm back. I fell through the floor, but I'm back.
It was like, it's a little disconcerting to have a disembodied voice
Yeah.
coming down from the heavens, but
Yeah, the first time it was funny. We were in here and we interviewed the guys from Spatial Ape, and I fell through the floor, and he did. My brother, we were filming it obviously, and you could just see him like, "What's going on?" Like, where'd everyone go? It was awesome. They were like, "Oh no, I'm sorry." I'm like, "It's fun. It's fun."
Spatial Ape since the beginning, I take it.
Yep. So, before your battery dies, we're almost at our hour anyway. So, if to anyone listening or watching, what would you like to leave them with? Like, what thoughts or like your pitch? I guess your elevator pitch.
Well, certainly the elevator pitch is this. It's a VR game based on my son's drawings. He's on the autism spectrum and is limited verbal, but is incredibly drawn to sketching out things. What I'd like to do is take his imagination and make it into an exploration platformer, puzzle solver that doesn't focus on combat. It focuses on helping people and making friends. And like we discussed earlier, I'd like to donate part of the proceeds to autism awareness and acceptance. And if the game really takes off, I want to develop a companion app so parents can use a smartphone or tablet to take a picture of their kid's artwork, and the app will slice it, dice it, and animate it, and a kid could play their own drawing in game. I'd also like to merchandise the characters and, of course, comic books, movies, and the cartoon TV series, if possible.
Yeah, it's so charming. I could watch a cartoon. Like I said, I've played the demo. I'm going to play it again, but just being in there just felt great. So I hope all those things happen because I would be into it.
Again, even if I don't go anywhere, even if I get no funding, I'm making this just because it's a labor of love. It's something that I bond with my kids over because my youngest is also now into, here, I'm going to make you a drawing. Here, I want to do a sound effect. I have this idea. So it's becoming a family project. I talk about this with my wife, and she's come up with several amazing ideas about how the plot should go, about what we should do at the very end. And I don't want to obviously give any spoilers. She figured out a way of closing out both the story and an artistic connection that, I mean, I'm still floored by it.
Wow.
So
That's
and
awesome.
the fact that my brother's done the voiceovers, my niece wants to do a song. It's something that's kind of bringing the whole family together. I even have my cat recorded a sound effect.
That's pretty epic. I mean, I don't, what is it about a child's art that just it makes you happy when you look at it? I'm not a psychiatrist, but
Yeah, no, I bet you that the people who are versed in it could explain that there's a universal appeal. There's an innocence to it, and I'm just waiting for the day that he starts to turn into a surly tweener and he starts drawing, bomb destruction and angry little things.
Yeah. Because it's funny. I was just scrolling. I think I first saw I don't know what, I think it was the bee.
Mhm.
Just scrolling through Twitter and I stopped. I'm like, what is this? I didn't really read it. I think I was on my lunch break, so I was just kind of skimming. I'm like, oh, that's a game, sweet. And then I'm like, that's in VR. I'm like, I have to check this out. Like,
I had gotten into the whole VR thing, and I actually registered this game with Steam before they switched from their greenlight system. So at that point, Valve was greenlighting everything, and now it's you have to pay $100 in order to get your product on Steam. So it's kind of grandfathered in. But
Nice.
as I was doing the market research, like I said, it's all shooters and zombies and things like that. I decided that I'm going to stick with VR, even though it could mean less sales. Maybe I'll explore being able to use both a flat screen version and a VR version. And if I get better at game design, perhaps maybe I'll be able to change the mechanics. So if you play it in VR, it plays one way. If you play it with a mouse and keyboard, it's another, and change some of the interactivity. But that's probably scoping too big.
yeah, that's always amazing with devs how you, because I myself, like, I have ideas on things and it's just hard to reel them in. But I'm sure when you, like you said, when you work on this, other things pop in your head. It's like just keeping that focus and like putting that stuff aside till you're ready for it. That'd be hard for me. So I don't know how you guys do it. But all right.
Simply looking at the clock and saying, yeah, I don't have time for that.
True. Time to make supper. Yep. Oh man, this was an amazing chat. Like I really love what you're doing. I love that it's got many arms and helping people and doing different things. So, whatever our humble little podcasting can do to help spread awareness or get the word out, just let us know.
I was absolutely delighted to do this too. This is always so much fun.
Yeah, it's just, I'll probably, after we call it a night, I'll probably just sit here and look at these guys for a while. It's just so
I
neat.
do have to get my oldest to bed soon, so.
All right.
But yeah, I want to thank you so much. I love doing these talks, and it's interesting because it helps fuel me to want to sit down and get back to work, get back to crunching on it, and
Sure.
get out there and show the world what I'm making.
Yeah.
I love people's enthusiasm about it, and it touches me that something that my kid is making is making people say, "Oh, that's so cool."
Yeah. That's got to be a really neat feeling. All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us, listening. Fletcher Studios, Hooper, get home.
Get home.
All right, I got it right. Check it out. There's a demo on Itch. There'll be links in the show notes. I'll be tweeting about it every time I see something new. I'll definitely retweet and look at it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Can't wait to play it.
Yeah, me too. Feels further and further away, but no, I like the dev that made the first tree or the last tree. Just never have a zero-sum day, and that's what I try to do. Keep working on it every single day. But thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been fun.
Yeah, anytime. It has been great.
No, thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Yeah, see ya. Have a good one. Well, for those listening, sorry for the little delay there. That was Thomas from Fletcher Studios working on Hooper Get Home. Very interesting and touching story behind the game, and the story is just like we were saying. It's great to be in. very creative, both from his son and what he's doing with it, with his son's artwork and creativity. So definitely check it out. Like I said, there'll be links in the show notes. But for this episode 76, I'm PJ. Wookie should be back next time. Thanks for hanging out with us. This was our VR verdict.